So, is Netflix a buy or a sell? First off, read this disclaimer carefully. Let's quickly look at what's happening in the market. There's been some bounce, that's because we did reach a key technical support level. We can look at that first. But you can see here that the megatrends are performing pretty well. They benefit, of course, from rising markets, but if we do see some pullback, then they will get into trouble. So, let's just quickly look at this buy. So we did touch this 10-week moving average. If you look at back here, we bounced off that moving average. Given that here we bounced and it led to a sell-off, the question here is how much conviction will there be in this bounce? So that's a to be determined, but that's definitively something to keep your eye on. We did have that bounce here as well. But this one is just different because here we are very overextended, similar to us being overextended here. So they are more comparable. So Netflix doesn't need a whole lot of introduction. It's the #1 video streaming service. Netflix is big in the news as of late. There's a lot of talk that they should face a Department of Justice action over Cuties, which is a movie that, it quite clearly has some highly sexualized imagery of children. I mean, this is a young child here in the background from the movie Cuties. So there's obviously something quite clearly sexualizing of children there. So that certainly could have some ramifications, regardless of how it turns out. The good news for active traders is that this will guarantee, it's a guarantee that this will contribute to a lot of volatility for the Netflix stock going forward. Okay, so let's first get, the big picture here for the chart. Obviously, it's been pretty darn bullish, but it's not been like a very easy trade. You can see that even during, this post-financial crisis bull market, there's been some frequent big pullbacks. Here all of a sudden minus 40%. Here this is 2018 and all of a sudden we collapse minus 44%. Then back here after a rally we implode minus 24%. Definitively a very volatile stock that is very suitable for both going long and also going short. Which means that if you do get into long-short portfolios, which I am a big fan of, then Netflix would be a great component. Given some of the most recent news about Netflix, I would, I like to have it, when I want to go short. Let's look a bit at, so one of the key levels here is this blue 100-week moving average. So here, and here, it's been a key level. It was violated a bit here, but then we bounce and test it surgically, so quite obviously, when you look at the chart, the 100-week is a good buy level when there is a bounce. In this instance, there wasn't a bounce. The next week we did see a sell-off. It begs the question, because the 20-week in purple has also been a support level. We are now testing that level. If we do, see some slicing here of that the 20-week, then there is an increased probability of us actually revisiting some of these slower moving averages. But we will look at more data in this video and sort of get the big picture before we make a final judgment. The accumulation distribution line, it actually is weaker here. You can see that it is a bit lower here than it was back here. So there's been actually some weakness here to this rally hasn't really been supported by a substantial increase in the number of buyers. So that is a bit of a bearish divergence. It's important to remember that this is also one of those pandemic trades, and one of the sayings now is that there's going to be a shift in the market from the pandemic trades, which have been bought a lot, to selling them and getting into some of the more undervalued stocks, and that could negatively affect Netflix. 60% correlation with S&P 500. If you look here at the daily data points, you can see here, all the moving averages. Because the Netflix stock, it moves a lot in these big cycles, up and down, It does, throw around the moving averages a bit, but you can see that historically they have been meaningful. Especially in this case, you can see the blue 100-day moving average has been quite important. When there's a clear bounce of that level, it has been a good buying opportunity. We are racing towards that moving average now. So based on the history, if we do get a bounce there, it has worked out as a buying level. But an even more important moving average is definitively the 200-day in red. So let's now get some additional data. So let's here look at the seasonality of the stock. You can see that, September, 63% of the time, the stock closes higher than it opened. Let's compare it against the S&P 500. Let's get more years. Yeah, you can see here actually that Netflix tends to underperform the S&P 500 in October and November. November is actually one of the weaker months, so that's actually so there's some weakness quite clearly here, and this is of course based on real data for Netflix. If we go here to Finviz, the price to book and a bunch of the fundamental ratios are quite stretched. Also got some red numbers here on debt to equity. The performance has been very good. 49% year to date. That's pretty good. I, of course, like to look at, the average analyst price target, because there's a bunch of analysts here covering the stock. And you can see here that the average analyst price target is $458. And that is 4% below the current trading price. That's, talks to the more bearish side. Okay, so that's an issue. If we go here to Saks.com, they have a number 3 hold. F value score, no value whatsoever. B growth and C momentum. There's no dividend, so you do not have any incentive to hold on to the stock. It's not a buy and hold in that sense. Market cap pretty big. Yeah, so to sum up my take here on Netflix. I am bullish on the theme, because I do have, a theme covering these kinds of stocks. I call it, of course, streaming, and you can see that the performance, it is outperforming here at the S&P 500, but there certainly are many themes here that are far stronger than streaming. I think that, when we look at the fundamentals, there is, historically, Netflix tends to have pretty substantial corrections. If there is added pressure, which I certainly do think that we will see there is a politicization of this issue, and there is, an election right around the corner, so I don't think it's going to be reduced, so there's going to be added pressure. When we look there at the fundamentals, they certainly suggest a more bearish take. Yeah, if I had to lean, I would lean more towards the bearish side. At least for the intermediate term, because you can see here, this stock, it quite clearly moves in cycles. Up, down, up, down, up, down. We have had a pretty long and protracted rising cycle, and I think there is more downside. At least that is what the evidence suggests. Whatever you do, of course, don't fight the trend, and may the trend be with you.